I brought flowers, her favorite perfume, and a letter I spent hours on. But when I found everything in the trash, I walked out and did something unthinkable. And the thing is, I didn't even go into that day expecting a fairy tale. I wasn't hoping for some picture-perfect reunion. I just thought, maybe it wouldn't sting this time. Maybe this year would be a little easier, a little softer. I don't know why I hoped. Maybe it was the way she thanked me for helping with taxes, or that smiley face in her brunch text, like old times. So I bought her favorite perfume, real flowers, and wrote a heartfelt letter, just to show I still cared, even if she didn't. I told myself this brunch could be a turning point, maybe a way to rebuild something that had slowly crumbled. She had me young, barely out of high school, and for years, it was just the two of us. A little messy, but we were close. Until Eric showed up. I was 10 when she met him, her future husband. He came across as decent in the beginning, quiet, stable, responsible. I thought maybe we'd be a bigger family, but I didn't know then that his arrival marked the beginning of me fading out. Then came Miles, my half-brother. Suddenly, I wasn't her kid anymore. I was just a reminder of who she used to be. And Eric? He talked about our boy when referring to Miles, but never once called me his stepson unless someone cornered him into it. The place looked great, like always. She never skimps on these events. There were mimosas, cloth napkins, real place cards, pure Pinterest energy. When I walked in, she looked up and said, "Oh, you made it." For half a second, I let myself believe she meant it. I handed her the flowers and perfume. She glanced at the bottle like it was some random item she didn't remember putting on the shopping list. "Oh, you remember this one," she said. No warmth. Just a fact. Still, I smiled. "Yeah, they only had one left." She nodded and turned back to the table like the moment hadn't even happened. Miles was in the middle of a story about college dorm life and his economics professor looking like he's never paid rent in his life. Everyone laughed. I found my seat quietly. There was a napkin folded at my place, but no name card. No mimosa saved for me. I didn't mind. Poured myself a glass of juice and sat like a guest at someone else's celebration. Eric asked me about work, then looked away before I even got through a sentence. Mom was fussing with the centerpiece. Miles handed me the salt without eye contact. It was all familiar, but this time, it stung a little more. Maybe because I had actually tried. Maybe because that letter was still in my pocket, sealed in a red envelope, waiting for the right moment. I'd even used my nicest pen, the kind you save for something important. Trying to break the tension, I offered, "Anyone want more coffee?" Mom didn't respond. Maybe she didn't hear. Or maybe she pretended not to. Halfway through brunch, Miles shot me this smirk and said, "So do you celebrate Mother's Day from a distance now? Or is this your charity visit?" Eric laughed. Mom just took a sip of her drink. I played it off with a smile. Didn't bring a coupon this time. Just a gift. Miles leaned in. "Cool. You Venmo it to her like last year?" "Nope," I said. "This year, it's actually in writing." I stood up, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the letter. Placed it gently next to her plate. That red envelope practically glowed against the white tablecloth. She blinked at it like it was some kind of legal notice. Then Miles laughed. "What's that?" "A love letter." "No," I said, still smiling. "Just a thank you." The table fell quiet for a second. Then someone passed the butter. After brunch, I helped clean up. I was halfway to the kitchen with a stack of plates when I noticed the trash bags were already out in the garage. We hadn't even finished our coffee. She's always been quick to tidy, so I figured maybe she was just being efficient. I walked outside to throw away some napkins. The garage door was cracked open. The sunlight streamed in just enough to highlight the trash bins near the back. And right there, leaning against a black garbage bag, I saw it all, the perfume, still in its box. The flowers, crumpled like they'd been shoved in without a second thought. In the envelope, still sealed, red against black plastic. My whole attempt at reconnection, discarded like yesterday's mail. I froze. Just stood there. Couldn't even feel angry at first. It felt more like static, rising up my neck, clouding behind my eyes. Not quite tears. Just a dull blur around the edges of everything. I glanced around. Nobody saw. No one popped out to say it was a prank or a misunderstanding. Just me. And the trash. I knelt down, reached in, and took it all back. The letter. The flowers. The perfume. Held them in my arms like pieces of myself I couldn't stand to leave behind. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I just couldn't stomach the idea of my love ending up under coffee filters and eggshells. I walked back to my car carrying that bag like it was evidence from a crime scene. Sat behind the wheel with the engine off and the letter on the passenger seat. I stared at it. Thank you for the years you gave me. I know it wasn't always easy, but you did your best. I'm proud of the woman you became. I stared at the envelope a little longer. Then I drove home. No texts. No explanations. No goodbye. I didn't even shut the door hard. I just left. Quiet. And that was the beginning. I got home and placed the letter back on my kitchen counter. Set it right next to the wilted flowers and unopened perfume. And I just stared. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't know what else I could have done. I kept asking myself why I still cared so much. Why I kept showing up, putting in the effort, hoping this time would be different. And why, no matter how many times I got pushed to the edge, I never saw it coming. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept replaying the look on her face when I handed her the envelope. How uninterested she was. How easy it seemed for her to brush it aside. That red envelope had every bit of my heart folded into it. And she just threw it away like it meant nothing. But by sunrise, I'd made a decision. One I wasn't going to take back. It was quiet when I left that night. Not the soft, peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that sits heavy on your chest. The kind that makes your breathing shallow and your heart loud. I stood alone in my kitchen, just staring at the things I had brought with so much hope. The letter still in my hand, the perfume in its box, untouched, and the flowers already wilting like they understood they'd never be appreciated. I lined them up on the counter like exhibits in a courtroom, as if someone might someday come by and ask what happened, and I could just point to them. I waited for some kind of meaning to rise from the silence, for the pain to make sense, for the ache in my chest to explain itself. Why did I keep showing up for someone who stopped noticing I was even there? Why did I keep caring when every gesture was either ignored or discarded? Sleep didn't come, not even for a second. My mind spun all night, looping through memories and conversations, trying to rewrite endings that had already played out. And sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning, when the world was still and my soul was tired, I came to a decision. A real one. A deep one. And it wasn't driven by rage or bitterness. It came from something colder, something solid. It came from finally being done. When the sun broke across the kitchen floor, my phone started vibrating like it owed someone rent. Missed calls. Voicemails stacking up. She knew. She knew I wasn't sulking. I wasn't licking wounds. I was pulling away, and not gently. For the longest time, I believed that relationships, especially the broken ones, fell apart slowly, like a shoreline eroding over decades. But now I see the truth. It all fell apart fast. Eric didn't drift into our lives. He landed like a wrecking ball, and everything shifted around him. I was 10 when she met him. I still remember that first dinner. Then another. And then, just like that, his car never left the driveway. His jacket hung on the coat rack. His shoes took the spot mine used to fill. My mom's face started changing too. More makeup, more smiles. But none of them were for me. Then came Miles. And that was it. Their new family was born, and I wasn't part of it. Rooms got reassigned. The home office became a nursery. A new fridge showed up in the garage, stocked with formula and overpriced baby food. My name vanished from the chore chart like I'd never existed. And I convinced myself it was fine. They were tired. Babies are hard. Things would go back to normal. I just had to wait it out. So I did. I waited while they forgot to pick me up. Waited when they missed the concert I'd practiced for all month. Waited under the rain outside karate class. Every disappointment got filed away under one excuse. They're just tired. That phase. It never ended. Miles learned to walk. They clapped. He said dada. They cried. I brought home an award, and Mom barely looked up. That's nice, she said. Can you watch him while I take a nap? She didn't stop loving me. She just started loving him out loud, and forgot how to love me in silence. And that silence? It echoed. By the time I packed my bags for college, I knew I was leaving a place that stopped being mine a long time ago. The walls were covered in pictures. Miles in pajamas, Miles on Santa's lap, Miles with matching family shirts at the park. Not one photo of me. Not even a blurry shot from graduation. I walked past a framed canvas that said, "Family is everything." And all I could think was, maybe, but not this family. Still, I kept showing up. Because deep down, I hoped my presence would change something. I came home for holidays. I brought thoughtful gifts, paid their overdue utility bills, Used my professional connections to help Eric land a job he had no qualifications for. He smiled through the interview and charmed his way in like he always did. Not once did they acknowledge that I helped, that I carried them when no one else would. But I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't doing it for recognition. I was doing it to stay tethered to the last pieces of belonging I had left. Even after I got my own place and settled into a decent job, I kept checking in. I sent texts on random days. Wished her good luck before doctor appointments. Sometimes she replied. Sometimes she didn't. But when she did, even a single word felt like someone cracking a window in a room that had been sealed shut. I helped her with insurance paperwork once, stuff that overwhelmed her completely. She texted me, "You always come through." Thank you. I stared at that text for hours. Then days. I knew it wasn't healthy. But when someone makes you feel invisible for so long, even a breadcrumb can feel like a feast. That's why that brunch crushed me. I thought we'd turned a corner. She used a smiley face in her confirmation message. She thanked me for the taxes. She didn't ask for anything. I allowed myself to believe we were healing. And for a moment, standing there with flowers, her favorite perfume, and a letter I'd stayed up late rewriting until it said exactly what I meant, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was her son again. But then Miles cracked a joke about me being half family, and she laughed like it was nothing. Eric interrupted my story mid-sentence to ramble about his latest obsession with stocks. She didn't stop him. When I placed the red envelope beside her plate, the one I'd poured my soul into, she barely looked at it. And later, when I found it all in the trash, unopened, uncared for, sitting next to eggshells and takeout boxes, I knew. I knew exactly where I stood. I still see that bag in my head. That sealed envelope. That boxed perfume. The crushed petals of the flowers, buried beneath scraps. I took them back. Not to try again. Not to make a scene. I just couldn't leave pieces of myself there, rotting in their garbage. Those weren't just things. They were pieces of who I still was. Pieces I wasn't ready to let be discarded. She texted me that night. "You left in a weird mood. Hope it wasn't something we did." And I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. It wasn't one thing they did. It was everything. It was years of being quiet so others could shine. It was doing the work, paying the bills, holding things together, all without recognition. It was being told I was the world, only to realize I was nothing more than a shadow they'd learned to live without. They didn't force me out. They just made it impossible to feel at home. So I didn't respond. Not out of anger. But because for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be let back in. I was learning how to be whole on my own. I didn't cry that night. Didn't scream or break things. What settled inside me was worse than rage. It was clarity. A brutal kind. The type that arrives when hope finally runs dry. At 2 in the morning, I walked back to the kitchen. The flowers. The letter. The perfume. All still sitting there. But now, they looked different, smaller, duller. Like relics from someone I used to be. I didn't need to open the letter. I already knew every word I wrote. Then I opened my laptop. Went through the accounts, gas, water, electricity. The ones I'd been quietly paying to help out. I made the final payments. Canceled the auto drafts. I cut every cord. It wasn't just the utilities I was turning off. It was everything. The need to be needed. The hope of being chosen. The illusion that I still had a place at that table. I let it all go. And for the first time in years, I felt free. After cutting off the utilities, I went down the list. I removed my name from every lingering tie, every subscription, every shared account they probably forgot I was still paying for. No ceremony. No speech. Just quiet clicks and confirmation emails, one after the other. Then I remembered the tuition. I had offered to help pay for Miles's next semester. The bank transfer was still pending, set for the 15th. I opened the account, canceled the transaction, and closed the page before I could second-guess it. That confirmation email felt heavier than the rest. Like it wasn't just money I was holding back. It was the version of me who always stepped up, even when no one asked him to. Especially when no one thanked him for it. After that, I opened a new email. Addressed it to my mom. Subject line, Mother's Day. And in the body, I kept it simple, polite, direct. Just a heads up, I tucked some cash in the envelope I gave you. It was meant for Miles's tuition. Figured you'd know what to do with it. Hope it didn't get lost. I stared at the message for a second, then hit send. There wasn't any cash, of course. But she didn't know that. I closed my laptop, got up, made a cup of tea I didn't drink. and just sat there in the stillness, letting the lies settle in the space between us like a truth too big to say aloud. Because sometimes silence is louder than shouting, and letting someone sit in their own panic can deliver more clarity than any confrontation ever could. Sure enough, by 8:12 a.m., the messages started rolling in. Wait, what cash? Was there really money in there? I didn't see anything. How much was it? I'm checking right now. Please tell me this isn't a joke. Then came the calls. Nonstop. Her name lighting up my phone again and again like a fire alarm I refused to silence. I watched the screen flash, then go dark. Flash again. Voicemail. Then another. And another. All stacking up like little eruptions of guilt. I didn't answer. I didn't even flinch. I let her sit in it. Let her mentally retrace every step. Back through the brunch. Through the envelope. Through the trash. Let her wonder if maybe, just maybe, she had tossed away something valuable. Not just cash. Not just a gift. But something that could have helped. Maybe even saved them. And now, she'd never know for sure. It wasn't true. I knew that. But that's the thing about people like her. They only feel the weight of what's lost once there's even a shadow of consequence. By noon, Eric finally reached out. Texted me like it was a business negotiation. This is childish. This is a serious situation. Can you just tell us if you're lying? I almost wrote back. Asked the garbage truck. But I didn't. I didn't say anything. I put my phone on silent and got back to work. There was one last thing I had to do. I opened my contacts and scrolled through the list. Found 3 names, people Eric had only met because of me. Professionals. Vendors. Clients. One of them an old friend I trusted who had vouched for him. I typed out 3 versions of the same message. Hey, quick note. Moving forward, I'd appreciate it if my name wasn't used in association with Eric Dalton. Nothing dramatic. Just a personal boundary. Hope that makes sense. No backstory. No drama. Just enough to plant the seed. Just enough to make them pause. And I knew how that worked. Eric's whole identity depended on being the charming guy with a solid network. The guy who could drop names. Borrow reputation. Look connected. Once I pulled back, others would notice. And they did. By Thursday, he lost a referral. By Friday, one of his contracts was paused. Another client asked to deal with a different rep. I didn't twist the knife. I didn't even touch the handle. I just walked away and let the machine fall apart on its own. That night, another message came in. This time from her. Did you find it? Please tell me if it's real. I think I saw the bag you're talking about, but everything's gone now. Please, I need to know. I stared at her name. Read the words over and over. For a split second, I thought about replying. Writing something final. Cold. Maybe even cruel. But no. That would have given her closure. And I didn't want to offer that. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about being cruel. It was about balance. It was about letting them feel, finally, what I'd been carrying since I was 10. When I stopped being her world and started being her mistake. Her burden. Her leftover. The thing she couldn't wait to phase out. It was about showing them, through silence, that you can't keep sidelining someone and still expect them to stick around. That love doesn't work like that. Loyalty doesn't work like that. And sure, the envelope didn't exist. But the grief? The abandonment? The endless, one-sided loyalty? That was very, very real. That night, she left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, trembling just enough to make me sit up straighter. Not crying. Not yet. But close. Please call me. Please. I didn't know. I didn't see it. I would have never thrown it away if I knew. Please just call. Please. She didn't say, I love you. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She said, please, like someone who just realized they lost something important and couldn't remember where they left it. I still didn't answer. The next morning, my aunt texted me. Apparently, my mom had called her in tears, saying I was being cruel, that I was punishing her, that I was withholding. My aunt's message was short. One line. If I were you, I wouldn't answer either. I actually smiled. For the first time in days, I smiled. Because someone saw it. Really saw it. How much I had given. How little I had gotten in return. How long I had sat in silence, carrying the weight of that family like it was mine alone to bear. That weekend, I put the gifts back in a box. Not because I wanted to hold on to them, but because I wasn't ready to let go yet. They weren't reminders of her anymore. They were reminders of me, of who I was, of the man who kept trying when he should have walked away, and of the moment he finally did. By Monday, the messages changed. No more guilt, just demands. I'm sorry you're upset, turned into you need to stop this now. Eric emailed me directly, in full professional mode, like this was some HR issue we needed to resolve over coffee. He said my silence was affecting his job, that my disengagement was putting stress on the family, that he hoped I'd reconsider for the sake of stability. Translation: your silence is costing me money. I didn't reply. Then Miles sent a voice memo. Look, I know things weren't perfect, but seriously? You're ruining Mom's life over what? Some trash. And that one. God, that one almost made me laugh. Some trash. That was it, wasn't it? I'd spent years being treated like clutter, like something that didn't match the aesthetic of their perfect little life, like something they could stuff in the garage when company came over. And now I was gone, and suddenly everything was falling apart, and I still said nothing. No gloating, no late-night rants, no dramatic social posts, no final message with bullet points and closure. I just stopped playing the part. And that silence? It was louder than anything I could have said. By the end of the week, she came to my office. No warning, no appointment. Just walked into the lobby like a storm in heels. The receptionist called me like there was a fire. I came downstairs and there she was, standing tall in a cream blazer, heels clicking like punctuation marks, face tight with panic and pride, and something else she couldn't name. She didn't say hi. She said, "Can we talk?" Then turned toward the doors like she already owned the conversation. And I followed. Not because I was ready, but because I finally knew I didn't have anything left to lose. We stepped out into the parking lot, just the two of us under the buzz of daylight and tension. She didn't ask if I was okay, didn't apologize, didn't even pretend to care how I'd been. She just went straight in. "You've humiliated this family," she snapped, her tone sharp enough to draw blood. "You embarrassed your brother. Eric's job is hanging by a thread. Do you even understand what that means?" "I understand exactly what it means," I said, voice steady, almost bored. She narrowed her eyes like I'd slapped her. "You're doing this out of spite. Over one party." I tilted my head, like I couldn't believe she was still clinging to that. "Is that really what you think this is about?" I asked, half a laugh in my throat. She crossed her arms, defensive and indignant all at once. "We raised you. We bought your clothes, fed you, paid for your schooling." I nodded, slowly. "And I gave you a down payment on this house, covered your utilities for 2 years, offered to help with Miles's tuition. But yeah, sure. Let's talk about those sneakers you got me in 5th grade. Something cracked then." Her jaw tightened, like the words hit somewhere she hadn't expected. "That was your choice," she said tightly. "We never asked you to do any of that." "No," I said. "You didn't ask. You just expected it." I could feel the fire rise in my chest. Not rage, just long dormant truth. "You expected me to step in when Eric forgot to pay the mortgage. You expected me to be understanding when you skipped my birthday to drive Miles to a study group. You expected me to laugh along when he called me half family in front of everyone, and you just smiled like it was a cute joke instead of a slap in the face." She opened her mouth to speak, but I kept going. "And you expected me to keep giving. And giving. Even after you threw away the one thing I had left to give you." That one landed. Her face changed, just for a second. A flicker of something passed through her eyes. Not full guilt. Not yet. Maybe just confusion that I'd actually said it out loud. She tried one last time. "You're punishing the wrong people," she said, her voice lower now. "You're punishing your brother. He didn't throw anything away." I exhaled through my nose. Then I smiled. Tight. Cold. "You want to talk about the letter?" She blinked. "I saw it, Mom," I said. "In the trash. In that black bag by the garage." She froze. I took it back. Her face fell apart in real time. The steel melted. The mask cracked. I didn't know," she stammered. "I thought you took it with you." "I wasn't sure." "You weren't sure," I repeated, like I was rolling the words around in my mouth to taste them. "I didn't mean to. You never do." I didn't yell. Didn't raise my voice. I just let the words sink in. I wanted her to feel how heavy they'd become. "I'm not dropping the act so you can feel better," I said. "I'm not cleaning up the mess you made. And if Eric loses his job, that's not on me anymore." She stared like I was someone she couldn't recognize. Like the quiet, helpful, background son had been replaced by someone real, and she didn't like the real version one bit. Then she hissed, "You're not just punishing Eric." I waited. "You're punishing this entire family." And I nodded. Maybe this family should have stopped treating me like a stranger with a checkbook. And I walked past her, straight back into the building. I didn't turn around. 2 days later, Miles posted a cryptic story on Instagram. Something dramatic about how some people abandon their family when it gets hard. A few mutuals liked it. One cousin messaged me, asking, "Is that about you?" I replied, "Probably. And if it is, good." Word started traveling fast. I heard Eric lost clients. Vendors backed out. One of the partners I'd connected him with pulled their contract. A few weeks later, he was asked to resign. They called it restructuring. Everyone knew it wasn't. Miles didn't get his tuition paid. He had to defer. I didn't say a word. Didn't gloat. Didn't explain. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because silence was the only language they never tried to learn. A few weeks later, I got a group call from them, my mom, Eric, and Miles. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. My mom spoke first, syrupy and careful, like she was trying to sound composed while walking on glass. "We just want to talk," she said. Miles mumbled something that sounded like, "Sorry, I guess." Eric didn't say a word. And then Mom said, "You made your point. So now what? Are you disowning us?" I played the message twice. Once to hear what they said. Once to hear what they didn't. No one said, "We're sorry." No one said, "We didn't treat you right." No one said, "We miss you." They just wanted me back in line. Back in costume. Back in role. And I was done playing that role. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked the number. 3 months passed. I got promoted. Moved to a better apartment with sunlight in the morning and a view of something other than regret. I started hosting dinners. Real ones. With people who wanted to hear me speak, not just fill a chair. Then one night, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. A text from my mom. "Saw you moved. Hope you're doing well. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." That was it. No mention of what she did. Or what she didn't. No ownership. Just a knock on the door to see if maybe I'd left it unlocked. I hadn't. I made tea. Sat out on the balcony with the city lights flickering below. No voicemail to replay. No calls to return. No tight feeling in my chest. Just quiet. And in that silence, for the first time in a long, long time, I finally felt like I could breathe. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh. If I could have handled it better. If I should have let it slide, just laughed it off and kept the peace. Maybe I could have waited for a better moment. Been more graceful. More patient. Less angry. But then I remember that garage. I remember kneeling beside a trash bag, pulling out wilted flowers, a sealed letter, an unopened perfume, all still damp from coffee grounds and banana peels. I remember holding the most vulnerable thing I'd ever written in my life, something I'd been terrified to say aloud, and realizing it hadn't even been opened. And I know, I didn't burn that bridge. I just stopped carrying the weight of one they demolished a long time ago. No, I'm not proud of the lie about the cash. But I'm not ashamed either. For once, they had to feel what I've been carrying for years. The doubt, the regret, the uncertainty, the silence, the realization that maybe, just maybe, they threw away something valuable. So what do you think? Was I too harsh? Was it finally time someone stood up and said, "Enough"? Would you have stayed quiet or walked away the same way I did? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. And if you like stories like this, about family, boundaries, and quiet revenge, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, there's more where this came from.